Hey guys, it's Aman
and Christina
from Our Rich Journey. We are talking about real estate investing here in Portugal. We think Portugal is an amazing place to live, and we also think it is an amazing place to invest in real estate. In fact, we own real estate here, several real estate investments here, and we are getting tremendous returns with those investments. You see, last week we did a video all about investing in real estate in the US, but we got so many questions about our real estate investments here in Portugal and our thoughts on the Portuguese real estate market that we had to do this video. And so in this video, we are going to address the questions that we received from last week's video about investing in real estate here in Portugal.
So that means we want to talk about some of the benefits to investing in real estate here in Portugal, but we also want to talk about some of the trends that we've been seeing. And then we want to tie that all together to really answer the question of whether or not we think it's a good time to invest in Portugal right now and moving on into the future.
So let's talk about the benefits of investing in real estate here in Portugal. The first reason is diversification. You see, you may have a portfolio that is made up of stocks, bonds, and real estate, maybe in the US. But by adding an international element to your real estate portfolio, it is a great way to extend that diversification. You see, investing in real estate abroad not only allows you to move out of your local market and put you into an international market, but it also changes the currency that you are collecting. So by investing in a foreign country, you are also collecting rents in that country's local currency, which is another form of diversification.
The second reason is that you can find potentially more affordable investments here in Portugal. That means lower costs and a lower barrier to entry.
Now, this is a really great reason, especially for people that don't have a lot of money to get started investing in real estate. Because prices on average are lower here in Portugal, this means it's an opportunity for someone to get started investing in real estate. Which brings us to our next reason, higher returns. By investing here in Portugal, we are seeing greater returns on our real estate investments than what we would have seen if we would have invested in the US.
And that again goes back to this idea that you need lower upfront costs with investing here in Portugal. So we'll give you an example to give you some perspective. Let's say you buy a home for $250,000 and you rent that out on Airbnb for $200 a night. Now, if you have an 80% occupancy rate, that return is more than $50,000 a year. That means you would have paid off the entire purchase price of that property within 4 years. That's a huge return on your investment, something that you're very unlikely to see if you invest in the United States. And finally, Portugal is really booming. It's becoming more and more of a tourist destination. In April of this year, more than 6 million overnight stays were booked in just April of this year. And flight bookings are overtaking pre-pandemic levels here in Portugal right now. So bookings from the US, the Netherlands, Denmark, and Germany are all up. 41%, 36%, 29%, and 11% respectively.
So those are some of the benefits to invest in real estate here in Portugal. But now let's talk about trends in real estate here in Portugal. So Christina and I have been studying real estate trends for a while now here in Portugal. And if you've seen some of our other videos, we talked a lot about how there is a misconception when it comes to supply and demand here in Portugal. In fact, a lot of foreigners that come here to Portugal tend to overpay for housing because they don't understand this dynamic. The first thing that people don't understand is the supply side. Now, when it comes to supply here in Portugal, from our perspective, there is a lot of supply. But depending on who you ask, they will tell you that supply is very low. Well, we're just going to pull up one statistic to illustrate how supply is actually in abundance here in Portugal. So, for example, one of the studies that we came across showed that only 48% of the properties that entered into the market in 2022 have already sold. So let's focus on this stat for a moment. Now, there are many other stats that back up this particular stat, but this stat shows that only 48% of the homes that entered the market in 2022 have sold. To me, that means that there is still a lot of supply available on the market because only 48% of the homes have sold. Now, if you've ever invested in a hot market like we have, investing in the San Francisco Bay Area, you did not only sell 48% of your homes in 6 months. In fact, you probably sold 100% of your homes within that 6-month period. So when people talk about low supply here in Portugal, from our perspective, there's actually a lot of homes available.
So right now, what we're seeing is a large supply of housing available in Portugal. But at the same time, we're now witnessing an increase in demand. And we think that that increase in demand can start to chip away or eat away at that amount of housing that is available. So for example, Century 21 just reported that they had 40% more sales between January and June of this year compared to last year. Now, of course, the pandemic is probably a role in terms of that increased number of sales. But as we noted earlier, we're also seeing Portugal becoming more and more popular. So that is supply and demand, but we also, of course, have to talk about this trend in terms of pricing in real estate here. We have seen pricing increase year over year here in Portugal. So in 2021, prices in Portugal rose 13.8% for real estate. In the first 3 months of 2022, the price of housing rose 17.2% compared to that same period last year. And data now shows that Lisbon is the 7th city in the world where residential property prices rose the most in the first half of 2022. So that is supply, demand, and price here in Portugal. But there are also some interesting trends related to housing here in Portugal. And the next one relates to the Golden Visa and changes to the Golden Visa here in Portugal in 2022.
Now, the Golden Visa was a big attraction for real estate investing here in Portugal because by investing a certain dollar amount in real estate here in Portugal, it allowed you to get residence here in Portugal. But recently, the government of Portugal has pulled that program back and limited to places outside of the areas that were the most popular for real estate investors. So Porto, Lisbon, and places in the Algarve, you will no longer be able to obtain a Golden Visa by buying real estate in these areas. Now, over the long run, the hope is that because of this, prices in those areas will go down. But what we think is also going to happen is areas outside of those places, prices will start to go up. So if you can find the next place that will be hot with Golden Visa buyers, there may be an opportunity to invest and get real estate at a discount before everyone else jumps aboard.
The next trend has to do with the US dollar. Today, the US dollar is stronger than compared to a year ago. And this can really impact how much you're spending if you're using the US dollar to purchase real estate here in Portugal. So here are some numbers just to give you some perspective. Let's say that you bought a home today for 250,000 euro. That would be approximately $252,000 now. But if you bought that same house last year, you would be spending $292,000. That means you have a savings of $40,000 today just because the dollar is stronger.
Now, this is actually amazing for a US buyer. Real estate actually got cheaper for you because the dollar got stronger. When does that ever happen? Yes, real estate has gone up 15, 20% here in Portugal over the last year, but the dollar has also gotten a lot stronger. So anyone that is buying real estate from the United States, because of the strength of the US dollar, you are seeing a significant discount.
And the last trend that we're seeing here in Portugal is an increase in crackdowns of Airbnbs. So this is really relevant to these major cities. It's becoming more difficult to get an Airbnb license in places like Lisbon, Porto, and the Algarve. But another crackdown happened with the Supreme Court of Justice just recently. So in a recent decision, the court just determined that permanent and temporary accommodations in the same building can no longer coexist. So we're talking about apartments and condos. The court determined that you cannot have Airbnb or short-term accommodation license in the same type of building where you're having long-term tenants. So this is a huge decision by the court. One thing to note is that it was case specific, so it's not binding, but it does set precedent for future lawsuits that could arise with people in Airbnbs and short-term housing in condos.
So to the question at hand, whether or not it's a good time to buy, well, there is a lot to consider. Everything that we talked about, from supply, demand, Airbnbs, locations, golden visas, all of this is information that you should take into account when you are developing your real estate investment plan. So if someone asked me today, is it a good time to invest in Portugal? My answer would be, what does your real estate investment plan say? What is your overall strategy? Are you niching down? Are you trying to go big, small? It always depends when it comes to real estate. The fact of the matter is, we think that there are a lot of opportunities here in Portugal when it comes to investing in real estate. But you must do your homework. You must come to Portugal. You must talk to enough people that you feel confident enough to make such a big decision like buying real estate.
So if you are keeping your eye out on the market, you are going to see in some instances that prices have increased. But like we said, we still think that the supply is available to go out and find those good deals. One of the things that we found with foreign investors is a lot of times they are overpaying. So we encourage you to do your research and really follow the trends and see what's happening in real estate here so that you don't overpay for property. We actually have an entire video that we did dedicated to why foreigners are overpaying and how to prevent yourself from overpaying in the future. So definitely check that video out. We'll leave a link for that video in the description below. But for now, if you're interested in real estate, if you're interested in developing a real estate portfolio in Portugal, check out our other videos on real estate here in Portugal. And of course, for this video, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and join the journey.